Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a very interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the TwoSun TS329 Vandal button lock. This knife was designed by Love Them Knives and a gentleman named Max Tachuk. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his last name, and I'm really sorry. I did not know that Love Them Knives designed his own knife. I would imagine that this happened a while ago, and I'm just out of the loop. I think that's super cool. I'm going to tell you guys right now that this is absolutely my favorite TwoSun knife that exists. And for those of you wondering, how come you don't review more TwoSun knives? The reason is because they just look kind of weird. Like, a lot of them are just like, ugh. Like, yeah, that's cool. Like, you're using M390 and occasionally S90V in titanium, and on some knives, oddly enough, it's D2 in titanium. And overall, they're offering pretty darn good fit and finish and great materials for the money. The execution has not always been on point for me versus other knives that cost a little bit more money. Sometimes they do very impressive things, but truth be told, a lot of the designs are just weird, right? I just have not generally been interested in a lot of them, but people constantly remind me like, hey, you just haven't seen the right ones, right? And this is an example of that. This is a gorgeous knife, and it is super cool and fun and unique in a lot of ways. I very much like it. As is the case with a lot of TwoSun knives, though, for some reason they made a few of them and then they just don't, it's not available anymore. I'm going to do the review. I don't know what the rules are with TwoSun, or, you know, if Love Them Knives is like, I just wanted to do a few and then we're done. You should make more of these. You should make more. This should not be a model that's like, well, it's done, sorry. There should be more of these because I think a lot of people would really like them. I will link the listing down below. It depends on when you're watching it. Maybe by some miracle it will populate and it'll be available, but I don't think these are available anymore. Thanks so much to the gentleman who loaned this to me for review. I don't get to keep it. His name's Corey. He's loaned knives to the channel before. This will go back to Corey when I'm done. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this freaking hulking button lock. This thing is gigantic. I mean, I know, cold steel, like people carrying the 4Max are like, not as big as my 4Max. The overall length of the TwoSun TS329 Vandal is about 9 1/8. Blade length is absolutely 4 inches. Cutting edge is just shy of 3.75 inches. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2? It's big, right? Even making the Rat 1 look like a small knife, right? Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Still big. How about up against the Demco 80 20.5? There you go. And last but not least, we'll do the Benchmade Bug Out. And how about the Benchmade Grip Challenger, in this case, the Ritter Hogue. All right. How's the action on this guy? This has a thick, robust button lock. There's a pretty decent amount of travel to disengage, but that does mean a little bit more surface contact usually. And thankfully, there is no lock stick whatsoever. One of my favorite things to do is laugh at the ridiculous hot takes that sometimes take the form of a quick review on websites. If you ever want a good laugh, go to a knife that you know to be in good standings with the community and find it on any website and look, and if it's got a lower than what you'd expect star rating, go through and read the ridiculous hot takes that are under there. Like, it's just some of the most goofball, ridiculous stuff. This wasn't that bad. There's one review of this thing on White Mountain Knives, and to the person who left that review, sorry. I think your review's silly. They were complaining that the detent is simply far too strong to be able to deploy this knife using the fuller, that it is impossible, and that they can't do it. That's wrong. It's just an incorrect review. I don't know what's going on with that person's knife, but this one is, I'd say, fairly easy as far as like other knives that I've handled. Could the fuller be deeper or a little bit sharper? Sure, but it's too strong? No. Not even close. Yeah, so I don't know what that's all about. But the button itself is big and, it sticks out quite a ways. I can't say that it's necessarily a problem when it's locked out. I mean, you can see here how much there's a lot of that piston lock contacting the surface, but there's no stick whatsoever. Pretty satisfying. The action's very good. I mean, it's definitely going to fall shut. I mean, there's just a lot of blade, right? Everything feels pretty good. It does have a little bit of up and down movement. Now, it's not enough to actually disengage the lock, right? Maybe if I were to do what some of those, testers on YouTube do and swing this like a baseball bat into a brick wall, I could probably get it to disengage. But under normal circumstances, it will not. The button, unless you are left-handed and squeezing this thing as hard as possible, in which case I can get it to disengage. If you're right-handed, though, in a natural grip or even a choked up grip, I found that I'm not on top of the button. It's like right there in between my fingers, right? So it's not going to disengage. But it does move just a little bit up and down, which, truth be told, is something that I kind of expect with plunge locks, whether we're looking at an automatic knife or a button lock, right? They're not always solid. Right? Usually with a plunge lock, the more you use it, the more it sinks in and the more solid that it gets. It could be the case that this knife just has not been used very much. I'm not going to count it off too much for that. What I do like is that button is large, easy to get at, and the edges are nice and smooth. It's very satisfying to disengage that lock or even hold it down and just whip it out. I mean, it's a really big, fidgety knife. Really, really cool. The action is excellent. Let's do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's a big boy. This is one of the biggest, most robust button locks that I've ever handled. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. It's big. That's the main thing here. It's big. It's not super tall, but it's reasonably tall. It's longer than both, and it's definitely thicker than both. Materials. We are looking at M390. How is the M390 heat treated? I have absolutely no idea. There are tons of people in this community that will go to bat for TwoSun, no questions asked, and they will say that every single TwoSun is heat treated properly. And there are also some people that have pointed out not all of them have been heat treated properly in the past. Admittedly, the last time I heard something bad about TwoSun's heat treatment was a while ago. Maybe they are getting better. I don't know. I don't know when this knife came out. I don't know if this particular batch was part of the good heat treat, right? I mean, if you want my opinion, this we're talking about this area. This is a premium knife, right? It's not a super premium knife. It's a premium Chinese production knife. In this territory, M390 should be heat treated between 60 and 62, right? 59 or less, not preferable. Not for M390. Even if it makes it easier to sharpen, you lose the point of the balance, right? The cake mix is still, you'd be like, well, I put more butter in the cake mix. It's got more butter. Okay, well, it's got too much butter. Like, it's not supposed to have that much butter, right? Or it needs more butter or whatever. But got too many eggs. That's where it should be. So I have no idea. I do not have Rockwell testing equipment. I would ask, check out Transparent Knives. Maybe he's done these, or maybe actually Love Them Knives himself, I think, also tests this stuff. So, but that's what you're looking at. We have beautifully milled titanium with a carbon fiber inlay that's slightly raised above the milling lines on both sides. Yeah, that looks good. Very nice. It's thick enough that they have actually milled it out on the inside. It does feel lighter than I would expect. I feel like this weighs maybe 6 ounces. Normally would expect it to weigh more, but it doesn't quite feel that heavy. So, okay, 6.28 ounces. So that's about the same as a full tie XM18, which is a smaller knife, right? So not bad, but the balance on it is, I would venture to guess this is a little butt heavy. A little bit. Not bad, though. Here's the balance right here. Not too bad, right? There's a lot of blade there. Doesn't feel too bad in hand. I like it. I like a bigger, heavier knife sometimes, even if it doesn't have those perfect ratios. You don't need that to make it feel good. Just giving you the information. You can judge it how you want to. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. The pivot, I'm almost certain is a T8. Yeah. We got a T8 screw back here for the body screw. Most likely some lipped inserts for the backspacer. That's probably what's holding it in, right? Which is cool because it only requires 2 screws. I couldn't imagine that this is a difficult knife to take apart. So once again, more great design elements from the 2 gentlemen involved with this knife. I just really like it. The design is just really cool. Blade stock thickness. Let's go ahead and measure that here real quick. If I can find those calipers. There they are. Blade stock thickness. It looks like the scales are huge. They're like the scales are gigantic and the blade is nowhere near as thick. So the scales, let's measure those. The scales. Good God, look at that. That is thick, right? But it translated well. And then the blade stock thickness is coming in at about 150 thousandths or so. So yeah, the scales are absolutely thicker than the blade, which looks a little bit odd, but it worked here. Let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes. This is beautifully ergonomic. God, this is good. Man, I just like the chamfered edges right here. Look at that. Really knocked those down. The texturing is nice to look at. Does provide meaningful traction, but it is not uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form. This is wonderful. I mean this when I say that this knife has wonderful. It's almost like a thick Shirogorov, right? There's something here that's Shirogorov-y, a little bit, but it's still definitely doing its own thing. This is comfortable. Choked up, choked back, choked all the way back for some choppiness or whatever. Really great. Like this has lock-in positions and, ergonomic, comfortable lines that are not, there's nothing here that's aggressive. Even this area here, there's nothing. You can hold this however you want, gloves or no gloves. This is beautiful. Really, really nice. We have jimping that extends way out, which is, I'm guessing that's love them knives. Maybe like me is just like, why is the jimping never long enough? This complements the choil area, which is the most important thing. And then he just went a little bit further, which is nice. This is just perfect. It's beautiful. The fit and finish is very impressive. TwoSun, in some cases, it's been kind of, and other times I'm like, wow, they are very capable, right? So again, I don't know exactly when this was made, but this is some of the nicest stuff that I have seen. I like the inlay work. The carbon fiber is all right. It's not the best carbon fiber I've ever seen. It's just, I don't know. It's like, what do you mean best? I don't like the flat, shiny stuff. This is flat and simple, not super reflective. It's a simple piece of carbon fiber and it looks to be of reasonable quality, but it's not anything insane, right? It's not like what I experienced on the Hogue Counter-Strike here recently. Admittedly, that's a much more expensive knife, right? But carbon fiber is not all the same. Like it comes in a few different base variations, and some of those base versions are more or less expensive, and then what they do with it ultimately determines whether or not me or anybody else gets excited about it. It's just kind of regular carbon fiber. It looks fine. The titanium is definitely the part that I like the most. They could have easily done no texturing on this and just made it flat, which is, or just basic and without any texturing, which is what I would have expected. But no, they did the texturing, which is nice. There's a nice tumbled finish on this, which is just gorgeous. I think it contrasts perfectly with the darker titanium and the carbon fiber. The fuller in there looks good. It says TwoSun, classic big heavy duty drop point blade with a flat that carries out about 65% or so, maybe 55% the length of the blade. Nice swedge right here. Plenty of robustness carried out to the tip, though I still wouldn't do anything crazy with this knife. I mean, you shouldn't be using folding knives as pry bars, right? I don't care who you are or what you do. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be using a different tool. But it will poke. It will definitely cut. I don't think it's the thinnest thing behind the edge, but it is thinner than I would have expected. Just giving it a little feel on, oh yeah, it's that's no problem. It's sharpened very well, right? This doesn't really prove much, but you can see it's really wanting to bite that factory edge, which is cool. Giving those little curly cues there. Your mileage will vary depending on what you're cutting, right? Rubber, rope, cardboard, wood, etc., depending on how thick it is. 150 thousandths is not super thick, but it's definitely on the thicker side, so you're still going to push a lot of blade through, that material. But really, though, this is an incredibly comfortable. These larger knives that have more material to fill the hand, if the edges have been chamfered down, it just feels so capable and so comfortable, right? Having an object fill out the hand like this, I think, creates less fatigue in the hand over time if you're going to use this for long periods of time, which this is absolutely capable of doing, right? This is absolutely a durable tool and will do that, right? If your occupation requires you to, like baton your folding knife through a piece of wood, like that's dumb, don't use a folding knife for that. If you really have to, then fine, go after something from cold steel, right? But the vast majority of us aren't doing that with our knives. This will stand up to reasonable, normal knife tasks, stuff that you should use a knife for. And I think it will, maintain its quality for an incredible amount of time. I don't see this knife, failing for years and years and years and years. I think it'll be great. I like the pivot, nice and simple. It's very clearly the TwoSun pivot. There is a backspacer that extends like 70% the length of the body. And I think that's probably a good idea because otherwise they made the blade so tall, probably on purpose because it would look weird, right? It's got a nice blade height to handle height ratio, but had they not put this backspacer here, you probably would have been able to touch the blade. I'm going to guess that's why that's there. It looks nice though. We have a milled clip and a long titanium backspacer, so we're definitely getting, if you want to reduce it to cost of materials, you're definitely getting what you want in terms of materials, so you're getting a lot of it. The pocket clip is the only thing that looks slightly out of place. I did not expect it to be a sort of super tactical holes in the pocket clip with a little ball bearing under there, which I don't love. I'll admit though, the pocket clip does work just fine. The pocket clip doesn't seem like, oh my God, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense with a knife. It just is a little tiny bit off. I do appreciate that it's short compared to the overall length of the knife. I think that's really smart. I don't understand at all these knives that just have these gigantic pocket clips that extend like half the length of the body. We don't need much more than this, right? Or on a shorter knife like the bug out, you don't need much more than this. I think it's just fine, and it's flat on top and rounded off at the bill. So what I'm saying is it doesn't create a hot spot at all. I hardly even notice that the pocket clip is there. There is a stop pin located right here, and then the closed position. I'm wondering what the idea is with this bar right there. That's the closed position stop pin, and then this is the plunge lock, and this is the open position stop pin. Okay. We have a little tiny bit of shouldering there. That's fine. No blade play left and right. Just a tiny, tiny little bit of movement up and down. But again, can't really critique too much because it's not, it just flinches that off, right? No big deal there. No lock stick. Very, very easy to manipulate. And the thing is coming in perfectly centered with no movement, despite it being in the closed position, no movement, despite it being a plunge lock, which usually has a little bit of wiggle. What was the price on this? No surprise because it's a TwoSun, but an incredible $189. Oh my God, are you kidding me? This is insane. Make more of these. Everybody would love, but here's the thing. Keep making the big one, and then also for people who either can't carry this big of a knife or just don't prefer to, make a smaller one. This thing is 9 1/8 of an inch. Make one that's 8 inches or 7 3/4 inches or something like that. Make a smaller one and maybe like scale it down, make it a little bit, you can still do thicker scales than the blade, but make the blade a little thinner, make the scales a little thinner, right? And people want the big one, they can get the big one. They want the small one, they get the small one, right? Make more. That's the whole issue. The biggest issue with TwoSun is they're just like, yeah, we're done. We stopped. We're not doing that knife anymore. Well, why? I would love to see this again. This is amazing, right? That's the best thing about TwoSun is that they kick out the good materials for the good money, right? Up until this knife, I have not really felt like everything came together in an amazing package where it was like, yeah, they got the materials, but that they execute them in a way that feels good, right? A lot of people are like, well, TwoSun's better because we will charge $250 or $260 for the exact same materials. Yeah, it's the same material, but sometimes we will execute those materials better. Not always. Some cases, it's the opposite, right? A lot of people try to compare TwoSun to Riat. Now, Riat does overall more impressive fit and finish and executes the materials better, even if they are the same. But that doesn't mean that TwoSuns aren't a great deal. This is some of the best execution that I have seen from TwoSun. And if the M390 is heat treated correctly, this is a ridiculously good deal. It's ridiculous. This is one of the we're talking Kunwu level excellence here. it's hard to compete with Kunwu. Their execution, right? They hit those heat treat numbers, right? Their execution of the materials is great, and their prices are excellent. This is really, really good. I love this. I think this is really cool. This particular model will not be for everybody because it is big and it is a bit thick, but you know, it's not crazy. Not at all. I really, really like this knife. There's just so much here that's just absolutely wonderful to me. If you can get your hands on this particular TwoSun for $190 or less, or geez, you know, if somebody charges you $200 for it, I would take it. It's not normally do I say, yeah, you know, it's overpaying a little bit. It's not that bad, but it's your only choice with this, as far as I know. So yeah, I mean, $190 is amazing. This is a very recommendable knife. I hope that TwoSun decides to do it again. And again, I don't know the rules, but Love Them Knives, if he's aware of this, I would say you should do this again. You should push for this to be made again. I don't know, you know, if you care, if you don't want to, or, you know, do your own thing for sure. But I think this is awesome. So anyways, that's going to be pretty much it from me today. Very cool stuff. Thank you very much to Corey for sharing this with me. I'm really glad he did, because otherwise I wouldn't have known that it existed. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.